Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with episode 4 of season 2 of The Walking Dead. Cherokee Rose, which serves as the title and driving force of some interesting things here going on here. First drop November 6th, 2011. Billy Gierhart directing 6 episodes of The Walking Dead altogether. He did. M.T. Reilly, also known for 6 episodes of The Walking Dead as well. Both, I think, were a lot of TV, which is, par for the course, generally speaking, unless you break out into film, right? But this one, Cherokee Rose, man, again, I'm watching it in black and white, and just an absolutely aesthetically looking at it, how it's shot. You can really see the grain in that 16 millimeter in the black and white, and it just gives this weird quality and air about it. When you're on Herschel's farm, a few times we get several shots that include the barn. That's foreshadowing something. I mean, this is part and part with film and how it drives narrative and foreshadow and showing you the way somewhere in this narrative of what to expect down the road. And we don't really get anything here in this episode per se, but I'm gonna be honest, man. There is a shot of an abandoned house that Daryl goes into. There's the shot on the barn multiple times. You just get now this may seem weird, but you just get a sense, a Texas Chainsaw vibe, Daniel Pearl vibe, man. The way they focus in, and of course I'm watching it in black and white, and you just get this sense of dread, man, this sense of dread, and foreshadowing of what may coming. Now, Daryl goes into this. He's out on a recon, looking for Sophia, of course. And he finds an abandoned house, and he's, in there, and opens up the pantry, thinks he hears something, and so he sees this pillow and the blanket down at the bottom, and as he comes out of the house eventually, he's caught, visually speaking, by these Cherokee Roses. Now, he knows the story behind these. And so deep into and I'm going to kind of move back on this in a second, but kind of cling to what what's in the forefront of your mind, and this quote that he gives to Carol. So he picks up, we don't see him pick up necessarily, but he picks up a rose, ultimately gives it to Carol when he gets back to camp, and finds her in the RV, and she has tidied up really well in terms of just, the inside of the RV and everything, which catches Daryl by surprise, and impressed, and comments on it. And he gives her the flower, and I got the entire quote down below, but he's makes the point to tell the story. It's out of context, but paraphrasing it, he goes back to the Trail of Tears and tells her how, as a result of the Army's solution to the problem of the Indians in driving them out. And of course, if you know anything about the Trail of Tears, there's a reason why it was called that. And it's just horrific, absolutely horrific story. And Daryl comments on the children and the daughters, and just how families were being broke up and split up, and so many of the little ones were dying, diseases and whatnot. And he said the elders had prayed for some sign of sorts that would give hope and encouragement to the mothers as they're grieving and mourning and reeling. And where the mothers had spilt much of their tears, the next morning, Cherokee Roses, these flowers had grown. And so that became a symbol of encouragement, strength, to be able to move forward through this horrific time. A lot of parallels, metaphors there for what they're going through here. It is also the Georgia State Flower, where most of all of this was filmed in the state of Georgia, which is interesting. So you got that going on as well. And so that entire quote is down there. I thought it was another brilliant 2 episodes in a row where Daryl just delivers some great lines, man. Daryl Rivas, just some great lines. So you pick up this episode, man. It's so cool, man. We open up with the rest of the group arrives at Herschel's farm, right? And it's not long before before the opening credits were set in a funeral session for Otis, in which, in the midst of it, while Herschel is performing it, we talked about, just the prayer of the elders and the Cherokee Rose. Faith is front and center in this episode yet again, mainly from Herschel to Rick, but opening up this funeral. Shane is asked to stand in Otis's spot to give encouragement. He is the last one to be giving out encouragement right now, and he tries to get out of it, but the wife won't let him, and so he's got to step in and, of course, reconstruct the events of what were into something much more keep him out of trouble from what he did, but also to give her a sense of hope or encouragement that Otis's sacrifice was not in vain. And it's hard to say that it was in vain in spite of Shane's actions. Ultimately, Shane was able to get out of there. Ultimately, he's able to get back, and Carl is saved. And so, I mean, there's an element of some sort of maybe truth to Shane, to the things that Shane is clinging to, but you just don't know if they would have gotten out of there together. And you have to assume, without knowing, that in fact they could have. They do have a whole mountain of zombies moving towards them, and they're both busted up, ankles and stuff, right? And so, you think Otis is going to cause them to not make it out of there. But Otis has proved already up to that point that you can rely on him to the end. But Shane just can't travel that distance. And so, of course, we know what happens, right? Shoots him to buy himself time and gets out of there. So, so he's kind of step up to the plate and deliver these words, which, and it's funny because now that I think about it, you look at Dale, and of course, Dale's already seen him. He's caught him once with Rick and his scopes, right? And he looks at him, and you can just tell that things are going on. Almost like he's gotten direction, right? Like he's told, I want you to be thinking, and I want you to be conveying it with your eyes. If you don't believe him for 2 seconds, something else happened out there. You can't trust him. You've already seen what he's done or was thinking of doing. And Dale conveys that so well. And it's only for a second or two, but you kind of get the sense that, and maybe not, he's not the only one that maybe he's not buying it, but who dare says anything? They weren't there. And there are more pressing issues to be had, which we find out now that Carl has gotten out of it and he's into the clear. You've got Sophia, which will become the main emphasis. You got a moment where Rick is told by Herschel, look, once Sophia's found, I don't think Herschel is, I won't get ahead of myself, but Herschel lays it out there that once Sophia's found, then Rick has got to be aware that him and his group have got to pick up and go. They're not used to having strangers like this on their property. And Herschel, there may be an alternative or other reasons why Herschel just wants them out of there. It's interesting where Rick says, hey, can we, do you want us to move closer down to the barn, away from the house? And Herschel says, no, that just can't do that. Better you next to the house anyways. And so you kind of get this sense that, again, whether it's the camera that is foreshadowing or Herschel, his actions. And a couple times he will say things that just seem not all is as quaint on this farm as we're being led to believe. And again, this is a TV show, so I don't know how many shows it takes for things to ultimately get revealed. And Although I remember certain things as we're traveling along this road, I don't remember a lot of it. It's been quite a few years since I've caught some of this on TV as it dropped. But you do get a sense of what the camera is trying to convey, what characters convey through what they say. Now, anyways, so you kind of got Sophia's in the spotlight, and but between Rick's blood loss and giving blood to Carl, and Shane's injury, ankle, really these searches, which will be better searches than they've ever been before, with Herschel's help in planning with maps and just knowledge of the area. They got to wait a day or so to do this, right? So this is what leads Darrow out there on the recon by himself. Glenn and Maggie ultimately do a recon to a pharmacy down the road to get some things, in which Laurie asks Glenn for something. We're not sure what it is initially, but is asked to retrieve something very discreetly for her. While they're there, Glenn and Maggie have their first moment where Maggie just gives herself to him. Sort of a, not to build a relationship of sorts, but you know, this is a moment in time when these types of things are way more forgivable in terms of the properness. You can understand these things will happen, right? And so, you know, but Glenn, I think Glenn ultimately, they end up having sex in the pharmacy. Glenn is, of course, trying to hide what he's retrieved for Laurie. And he's sitting there with a package of condoms. And of course, you know, Maggie sees it and she's like, condoms? Like, boy, you must be, you must be, what's the word she uses? More confident. You must be more confident than I thought you were. And of course, he suddenly is like confused and lost and in thought and word and no, that's no, nothing about you or anything. And then she's like, of course, you know, she flips it, you know, what, was something wrong with me? And then he realized what's happening here, and he's even getting more stammered on his words. And ultimately that leads into the point where Maggie just says flat out, yes, I'll be with you, like here, now. And you kind of, you know, get the idea that Glenn is really, he's really, what's the word? There's a word I had. Well, he's definitely caught by her. He's infatuated, and she basically tells him as they're making their way out of there that was a one-time thing. Don't expect anything else. And you can see the disappointment on, of course, his face. And I think we know that will change, right? And ultimately charge. So, you know, so there's that scene working in. You got this great well scene before all of that stuff, where they've got 5 wells on property. And the second well is the water they use for the cattle. And, well, Dale's going to go out there and get water. That's where they're going to get their water from. And they come to find there's a walker, a bloated walker. That it's sort of not, you know, really completely aesthetically, but it kind of reminds. Anytime you see a bloated walker, how can you not think of our star, or one of our star zombies from Zombie, Lucio Fulci Zombie, right, with the bloated stomach, man. And so pulling him out there is a lot harder than what they thought it would be. Eventually, Glenn has used his bait. And as it would happen, even though he almost, as an accident, falls down into the well, they're able to get him out of there safely. And as a result, he does get the noose around the zombie. They're able to pull up the zombie, but wouldn't you know it, just as they get the zombie up over the ledge of the well, half its body pulls away and drops into the well. And that is exactly what they were trying to avoid in the first place, contaminated water. Nobody wants to drink from that, right? So that is a pretty incredible scene. There's a great scene between Herschel and Rick, where Herschel breaks away from them looking at a map and talking about Sophia, I think is what they're talking about. And he takes them and he just shows them the valley, man. And he says, you know, just take a minute, pause. Just look at the grandeur of this, right? And that leads Herschel to talk about how causes him to think about God, which in turn Rick's sort of not in the mood for that kind of discussion in light of what just happened with Carl. Well, there comes an interesting little conversation about the providence of God at work. And having heard from Laurie a little bit more of their journey, Herschel basically lays a lot of those events that we already know firsthand. And he says, how do you not see the providence of God in this? How do you not see his hand in this? And Rick, in that moment, of course, is, well, if I gain anything from this, it's that God has, I can't remember, a sense of humor of sorts. A funny sense of humor, something to that effect. And so it is interesting, the journey arc of these characters that they're on. Daryl even seems to be changing a bit with this episode in terms of his character. Merle does come up, though, briefly. Rick is trying to take some of the burden off of him, and Daryl doesn't want to hear any of it. You know, he's lost Merle. For all he knows, he's lost Merle completely. And so he's got to refocus his energy. He's, sights on something. And right now it's, I think it's looking for Sophia, and it's being part of this group, at least for the moment. He's finding some worth and value there in that, right? And he's trying to change, or at least change is coming to him. I'm trying to think what else happened in this. Got the well walker, the abandoned house, Shane and Otis's final, the funeral, the weird exchange between Maggie and Glenn in the pharmacy, and then we find out in the very end what Glenn has retrieved is a pregnancy test, which in the final moments of the episode, Laurie goes out by herself, takes the test, and we find out that it's positive. Laurie is pregnant. So with that, we will see in the next episode. I do believe I have to change discs. Let me see here. Yeah, I have to change discs. So I'm not sure what the title of the next one is, but yeah, this journey, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. And if you haven't watched it in black and white yet, get that color off your screen and just aesthetically look at that in black and white. It's quite amazing. And I think this is what is really just drawing me in, first and foremost. And then it's the story and everything else, I think. So with that being said, we always send these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. It might be useful to